So whenever the topic of Harvest Moon would come up in relation to my Every SNES RPG series, it would always spark this feverish debate over whether or not it's actually an RPG. Seriously, I've lost friends over this, and I've never even really had a stance either way, because I had never played any of the games. My sole criteria was that it says it's an RPG on Wikipedia, so on the list it goes. One of my core tenets for being an RPG is that the game needs to have a concrete beginning, middle, and end, and Harvest Moon kind of does. It's at a fixed point in time, that or you can just end the game whenever you want. If you hold down L, R, start, and select when you go to bed, it skips straight to the end, so you could in theory, I guess, finish the game that way. There's even an old GDQ run where they finished the game in less than 3 minutes. Now after being done with the game, I'm still not really sure if I would consider it an RPG. But I guess if I have to ask, then I'll err on the side of it being one. It doesn't really matter anyway, these are just semantics at the end of the day. Going into this, I had never been less excited to play a game in my entire life. Could you tell this game won the poll, and then I uploaded 11 different videos that weren't Harvest Moon. But reflecting back, I can definitely say that I didn't hate it. But at the same time, it is absolutely not my thing. Doesn't mean that it can't be your thing, but it's not mine. Now, Uncharted Waters, which is my thing, and in many ways can be compared to Harvest Moon in that both of these games, the repetition and almost chore-like nature of them craft this relaxing feeling that's easy to get absorbed into. They're both the kind of games you can play for a few hours and not even realize it. They're time holes. You can sit down, get into your routine of daily life, and lose track of how long you're playing. And in Harvest Moon, it kind of worked on me, but I got bored with it much faster than I did in the Uncharted Waters games. So why is that? Do I just like boats more than farms? That's not really true, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere, not exactly on a farm, but around farms, and I'm terrified of boats. I would never get on a boat if I couldn't see the shoreline. The reason I prefer Uncharted Waters to Harvest Moon, I've distilled down into one simple reason. In the original Uncharted Waters and in New Horizons, you have concrete goals that you're always working towards. And in Harvest Moon, there's not really anything like that. Sure, there are smaller objectives, but there's no end goal. There's nothing that you're constantly always working towards. There's nothing to strive for over the entire length of the game. What ended up happening in Harvest Moon is that I accomplished everything I wanted to personally about halfway through its runtime, and then was left with nothing to do except repeat the same tasks over and over again until the game decided that it was over. You see, Harvest Moon is divided into 2.5 years of in-game time, each divided into 4 seasons. Each season has 31 days, kind of like a month in real life, if each month represented one season. So basically you need to live out 310 days, using that time to maximize and live the most fulfilling life you can. Earlier I mentioned that you can skip all the way to the end, but you can also skip days by just waking up and then immediately going back to bed. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, but I made a deal with myself that in order to get through this game legitimately and to feel good about it, my plan was to go through every day without skipping. I looked up a PDF of the manual, but I decided under no circumstances was I going to consult a guide. I'm well aware this means that I definitely missed things, and you, the viewer, will probably be angry about it if you're into Harvest Moon, but oh well, we're just going to have to learn to live with that. When the game started, I had this overwhelming sense of what the fuck am I supposed to even be doing? I had heard that you could mess things up relatively easily, so I was paranoid of making awful mistakes in the beginning. You're gifted a dog, but how the hell do I feed this thing or take care of him? It seems like the only thing I was able to do was pick him up, and I don't think I missed anything. I don't think you're expected to feed him because I never figured out how to do it, and he was still alive at the end of the game. But in the beginning, I was still paranoid that I was gonna kill this dog. You're supposed to be a farmer, so I thought, hey, I guess I should be planting things. You start out with this bag of grass seeds, so I go out into my field. I don't really know what button does what at this stage, and oh, I threw them into the air? Did I do it? Was that right? It didn't look right. Nothing happened. Of course, I found out that that was in fact not right. You're supposed to till the soil with your hoe before throwing the grass seed into the air. Well, there's not really a lot of feedback in this game. Most of your actions just kind of happen, and you don't know if it was successful or not. And that's a running theme through these early stages in the game, is I wasn't sure what did what, because the game doesn't give you enough feedback. Next I ventured into town, and this girl's asking me if I like animals, and to tell you the truth, I really don't. Maybe that's why I don't really like Harvest Moon that much. In town, there's straight up a church. Like, it's called a church, they worship God. In the beginning of the Super Nintendo era, they were still consciously sidestepping any and all religious references. For reference, the Master and ActRaiser. But I guess by 1997, Nintendo officially didn't care about religion in their games anymore. Almost everyone in town goes to church every Sunday, and since I didn't really have anything else to do besides planting things and them not growing at this stage, I decided to also go to church every Sunday. I already used my 1 bag of grass seeds, so I went to the store to buy some more, and what the fuck? 500 gold? 1 bag of grass seed costs more money than what you start with? How am I supposed to afford seeds then? If I can't afford to buy seeds, I can't plant anything. And if I can't plant anything, how am I supposed to make any money? Sometimes when I'm tilling my land, a coin will just appear, but there's no indication of whether or not it did anything. There's no sound effect. There's no indication that I got anything of any kind. Am I just supposed to till the land in my farm hoping I find random coins until I save up enough money to actually buy a seed so I can plant things? Did I just permanently fuck up by wasting that bag? Playing this game at the beginning was as if I was actually handed a farm in real life. Except in that scenario, I would sell it and do literally anything else. Maybe I'd buy a boat. Unfortunately, in Harvest Moon, you can't do that. I guess I could just turn the game off and play Uncharted Waters instead. That's kind of like selling my farm and buying a boat. But no, through thin and thick, I'm stuck with Harvest Moon. Eventually I found that if you go onto this mountain, you can pick up random stuff off the ground and then sell that. So my daily routine would be, I get up, I go to the mountains, I start picking stuff up off the ground, then I go back to my farm and throw it into this box where at 5 p.m., this guy comes to pick everything up and give me my money. That's how you make money in this game. You throw stuff into this box right here. It doesn't matter where you got the stuff, if it's from your farm, or if you just found it on the mountain, the game treats it all the same, so you still get paid for it. So I went to the mountains a few times, brought some shit back, until I was able to save up enough money to buy my own seeds. So I till the land. I bought turnip seeds, by the way. I throw my turnip seeds into the air, and they plant with a visual indicator. Is that it? Well, I had a hunch that it wasn't. I think you also have to water your plants too. I have this watering can, so I get it. Doesn't seem like I can interact with the well. I'm hitting every button and nothing happens. Is it working? I'm incredibly fortunate you can actually see the seeds on the ground. It doesn't look like I'm doing it right, but I don't have any other ideas, so I just assumed that I was and kept living my life like normal. So days and even weeks went by, and it seemed like nothing was happening with my turnip seeds. So I was pretty sure that I was messing this up, but I wasn't exactly sure how. I can't figure out how to farm. I can't figure out how to water my plants. Nothing seems to be growing. Maybe I just need to be more patient, but what the hell am I supposed to be doing? And since I couldn't figure out how to farm, I kept getting money by just going back to the mountains and picking stuff off the ground again. Luckily, you don't have to pay for food or taxes or anything. You can just subsist off no money, unlike in real life. So it's not like I was in danger of dying or anything. I was still scared that my dog hated me, but whatever, I can't figure out how to feed him, so there's nothing else I can really do. But how sad is this situation? I'm selling berries and flowers and fish that aren't even from my farm. I just find them on the mountain. They regenerate so I can keep going back and getting as many as I want. Once it gets to 6 p.m. and it becomes dark outside, the night never ends, so I can, in theory, just keep doing this forever. I can just keep going back to the mountain, picking up the regenerating berries, going back to the bin, putting it in, repeat until I have infinite money, right? Since I can't figure out how to farm, my new plan became to just do this until I can afford a cow. And then I'll use that cow to milk it and make money doing that way. I'm just gonna be a livestock farmer. Eventually you get too tired to work, but even if that happens, there's a hot spring on the mountain you can just jump into, and then you get your stamina back. So it really is just a test of patience. How often are you willing to walk all the way up to this hot spring to get your stamina back? But I hate this. I'm not a farmer, I'm a thief. I'm a gatherer. You know, back when humans were nomadic, men hunted while the women and children stayed around to, like, gather plants and berries and stuff. That's me. I'm the kid. Actually, you know what? How old am I supposed to be? How old is anyone supposed to be? Spoilers for later, I do end up getting married and having a kid, but I look like I'm 10 years old. So after spending no joke, over an hour staying up, grinding out these berries in the mountain and throwing them into the box. The next day, I come to a horrifying realization is that the guy who picks up your stuff from the box comes at 5 p.m. and anything you put in the box after 5 p.m. when you go to sleep disappears. It's gone. So you don't actually get paid for anything you harvest after 5 p.m. In other words, I just spent over an hour grinding, wasting my gosh darn time. But that's good, at least they thought of this incredibly easy exploit that I found immediately. You can't use the never-ending night for infinite money, but you can use it for infinite labor, aka whatever needs to be done on the farm. That kind of stuff you can do forever. I knew going in that marriage would be a part of the game, so pretty early on, I decided that I was gonna date the church girl. Screw you, you saw my SMT1 review, I don't have to defend that. I already decided I want to be a livestock farmer, but then I learned that you actually need to have grass on your farm in order for the guy to even sell you cows. So, even if I'm gonna be a livestock farmer, I need to at least figure out how to grow grass. Finally, the moment of discovery came, and I fucking knew I was watering the plants wrong. In fact, I'm incredibly stupid for not figuring this out immediately. There are these little bodies of water, kind of like little ponds, I guess, and you just use the watering can on the ponds, then it fills up, and then you can water the plants. Oh, duh. After this, my turnips finally started to grow, and in no time, my farm was actually making money. I know, crazy, right? Now I don't have to go to the stupid mountains and steal all their shit. Unfortunately for me, by the time I figured all this out, spring was basically over and I had wasted the entire month. I was still incredibly paranoid that I wouldn't play the game right or that I would run out of time, so I was actually very worried and I thought about restarting, but decided to stay the course anyway. It was a learning experience. You need to learn in life. We still have 9 more seasons to get through, and I was confident that if I played those to the best of my ability, I would get a pretty good ending. Maybe not the best one, but I do pretty well. Summer brought with it tomatoes and potato seeds, which take longer to grow, but can be harvested more than once. They also sell for more money, which means more money for me, which I spent upgrading my house, which didn't seem to change very much, so I upgraded it again, which made it change a lot. They added a second bed, a baby crib. I mean, how presumptuous can you be? It's kind of hilarious that they just added the graphics for when you eventually get married and have a kid before you actually get married or have a kid. You're just ready. You just have all the equipment. After upgrading my house, I finally bought that cow, named her Mooey, or at least tried to. There's a 4-character limit. Whatever, I'm still going to call her Mooey. So once I got the cow, my daily routine was to wake up, feed, brush, and talk to Mooey, harvest my vegetables, then go to town to talk to Maria. Sometimes I buy her flowers. On Sundays, we go to church, and I always talk to Maria, but she always asks me the exact same question. Are you here to see the preacher? Every single time without fail, I say yes, but she continues to ask me every week anyway. Then at night, I go back home and water all my plants. Remember, night never ends, so it's the perfect time to do labor like that. Then one day I wake up and Maria's dad confronts me outside my house saying that she went missing and that I should be looking for her. Harvest Moon is a microscopic game. You have your farm, you have the town, you have the mountain, and this one little alleyway which connects these 3 areas. But that's it. That's the entire game. And none of these areas are really very big either. In fact, I think they're all the exact same size. They're about a 3x3 grid of what you can see at any given time. So I started combing everywhere. I went into every house. I went over every square inch of the town. I looked in my farm, I went to the mountains and started looking there. I couldn't find her though. I was just kind of hoping that at the end of the day she would end up at my house and then we would get married and that would be that. But she didn't appear at my house or anywhere on the farm, so I spent the next few days looking for Maria. Couldn't find her until I finally did inside of the guy who upgrades your house's hut. I don't know why she went there, and after the most awkward scene in the history of video games, she goes back home. I went to talk to her dad about this, and really? You don't have any dialogue referencing this at all? Nothing? This is when I became especially aware that people's dialogue in Harvest Moon is A, incredibly lame, and B, never seems to change very much. I think just having different dialogue would have went a long way towards making Harvest Moon overall a better game. You see it in other titles which revolve around one small town, like in Ys 3, or in a more modern example, I guess Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Though shit, that game's almost 20 years old itself. You talk to the same NPCs and they reflect back on the events which are going on. Harvest Moon doesn't really have anything like that. Everybody just kind of says the same shit the whole game, at least in each season. As in, the second fall, everybody says the same stuff as the first fall, the second summer is the same as the first summer, the same as the third summer. Everybody just says the same stuff. This little kid saying that he misses Maria after you marry her is about the only thing I even really noticed. And Lord forbid you stay in town too late. Everybody turns into a pod person. They all say the exact same thing. It's late now. Go home. Every single person says almost the exact same thing, and it's frightening. This is like the beginning of a creepypasta. One day I go to town and there's this guy selling what he calls a blue feather of happiness. It's obviously a scam, but what else is there to spend money on? I'm making so much and I don't even know what to do with it. Once you upgrade your house, there's not really much to spend other money on. I wanted to fix this wall at my farm, but I never figured out who to talk to go about doing that, so unfortunately it stayed broken the entire game. So I'm living my life until one day, oh shit, Mooey grew up! I didn't even realize that old Mooey was supposed to be a baby cow. I thought she was already full grown, but apparently not, because now Mooey's a full grown cow. I was wondering why I couldn't milk her. I know in real life cows need to be pregnant, right, to be milked, but I didn't think that would be the case in this game, and it's not. They just need to be an adult. I can now milk her all I want every day, only once a day though. Then I found some gnomes living on my farm. Weird. And they offered to upgrade my equipment? Very strange. So I live my life for a few more days, you know, watering the plants, harvesting, and by God, I love Mooey. Mooey is like my whole life now. I go in there, I brush her, I talk to her every day, multiple times a day, give her tons and tons of food. Then one day, I go in there, and Mooey's sick. And I start fucking panicking. But if you go to the livestock dealer, fortunately he sells cow medicine, which you just inject her with and she's as good as new. But it's 1,000 gold, which is quite a bit. I was reading in the manual that cows can get sick if you bring them outside in the rain, but I certainly never did that. So what happened? Why did Mooey get sick? I figured out that the answer is because I've been feeding her wrong. You see this right here? What I did right here? What I've been doing is I would take the feed out of this little silo, then I would walk over and hand it to Mooey, and just kind of assumed that this meant that she ate the food, but it doesn't. What you're actually supposed to do is take the food, put it into her section of the trough, then at the end of the day, the game will check to see if there's food in the appropriate slot, and if there is, it counts you as feeding her. There's no actual eating animation or anything to watch for, and handing her the food doesn't do it. So after that, Mooey never got sick again. One day this guy informs me that the egg festival will be going on tomorrow, which I skipped because I don't have any chickens and don't have any interest in ever getting any chickens. Spoiler alert, I never get chickens. They're loud and, I don't know, they're just too rambunctious. I don't want to have to deal with chickens. So I'm making money hand over fist with these tomatoes and potatoes and milking Mooey every day. I could easily afford a second cow, but I love this one way too much. I'm a one cow man. Sure, I could buy more cows and make more money, but at this stage, I start looking around and thinking, what do I do with the money anyway? I've already run out of stuff to spend it on. There's no like cosmetics store in town. So I keep stockpiling all this money and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with it. One day I go to town and I go to the fortune teller's house and I read something really interesting. It says that in order to get married, you need to give Maria, or whichever girl you're going to propose to, you need to give them the blue feather of happiness. Remember that weird trinket that I bought? This thing actually has a purpose? So I give it to Maria, and she tells me to wait until Saturday, and she'll let me know if she wants to marry me then. Okay, I mean, not a good sign right away. I think if I got that response if I ever proposed to somebody, I may just hang myself. Whatever, I'll wait till Saturday, see what she says. So I went to church on Saturday to see her, and oh, you just get married right there. Okay. Alright, cool. Did I forget to mention that it's fall? It's fall now. Unfortunately, in fall, you can't harvest any vegetables anymore, so I'm not really making a lot of money, but I made so much over the summer that it didn't really matter. Maria lives with me now, which is pretty damn cool. So really all I do is wake up, go see Mooey, feed Mooey, milk Mooey, go see Maria, feed Maria, milk Maria, and that's about it. That's all I do. The first Sunday after marrying Maria, I went to church to see her as usual, and horrifyingly, she stopped going. After she marries you, she stops going to church. And it's a really sad sight to see. Then winter happened, and it's a lot like fall, just everything's white now. There's not much going on. All I can really do is continue to milk and feed and talk to Mui. Maria got pregnant over the winter, which was really the only highlight. It was pretty much the only thing that happened. Since I can't grow anything, I'm going back to the mountains just to harvest stuff that I find there to make money for really no particular reason. I don't know why I still care about making any money at all. It's at this stage where you really start to see my gripes with Harvest Moon come to fruition, because I've just reached an equilibrium. I've done everything I want to do. Maria ends up having that kid, and I'm thinking, okay, I have a wife, I have a kid, I have a cow. I've upgraded my house the most the game allows me to do. What now? I have a farm that, at least in spring and summer, print money, and even in the winter and fall when I can't do that, I still have other ways of making money. Once in a while, there's like a one-off thing I can buy that I can easily afford. It barely puts a dent into my wallet at all. For example, this one time, this guy came by with what he called a money tree, and I'm like, hell yeah, of course I want a money tree. I'll spend my money on literally anything at this stage because I have so much of it. He plants the tree and it grows, and it's a bell tree, which I guess in Animal Crossing is money, but here bells aren't money, so it's still very cool to have, and I really wish Harvest Moon had more decorative stuff like this. There's no store in town where you can buy trinkets for your farm, and there's really just a huge lack of things to spend money on. Like, if making money is supposed to be your main motivator for doing all this stuff in the game, they really ought to have given you way more stuff to do with said money. But they don't. What they should have done was just had one astronomically expensive thing in town that you're saving up the whole game to buy. That would have kept me motivated so much longer. But instead, all you can really do is just buy these one-off things as they come up, expand your house a couple times, and everything aside from that is just spent on upgrading your farm. But like, I have no incentive to upgrade my farm to make more money if I can't do anything with the money. Right now, I am perfectly content with my one cow in my happy family, and I feel like I've done everything. I'm only 5 months into the game, and that's it. I've done everything the game has had to offer. I had a lot of fun figuring stuff out in the beginning, but this second half of the game, these last 5 seasons, were torturous. Because it was the same shit every day. Sure, I made my farm more efficient in the second and third spring and summers. I started using the row system because it was really hard to harvest things when it was all in one big cluster. I upgraded my equipment to make things easier too, which helped me make more money. Unfortunately, there's nothing to spend it on. Once in a while, some random stuff happened, like a hurricane would blow through and wreak havoc on my farm, but I just kind of left it the way it was because I was already growing too much stuff to harvest in one day anyway. If anything, all it did was lower my workload. It's not like I need the money, as I've already complained about a million times. Maria got pregnant again, but the kid wasn't born before the end of the game happened. At the end of the day, I really think that Harvest Moon just suffers from a lack of things to do. There's only 2 different animals you can buy, cows or chickens. I didn't want anything to do with chickens, and I only bought 1 cow. I would have bought more animals if that were an option, like a llama or a sheep or anything else you might find on a farm. You do eventually get a horse, but you don't buy them. It just shows up on your farm. I named him Pogo. I don't know why. You try thinking of a good name with only 4 characters. I ended up planting grass all around my house just to make it look a little neater, but there was nothing else I could do. I'm assuming there was a way to fix this wall, but I couldn't figure it out, and that was it. I did everything I wanted to do, and it was just a chore to get to the end after that. Now, whenever people talk about Harvest Moon, they almost never talk about the Super Nintendo one. The conversation always drifts to the ones on the Game Boy Advance, or the N64 one, or maybe like a modern one on Switch or something, and I assume the sequels address my main issue. I guarantee there is way more to do in those games, so they're probably way better. Most likely just a more realized execution of this concept, and I do like Harvest Moon's concept. I was actually getting into the game during the discovery phases when I was working towards a concrete goal. When I was working towards expanding my house, towards buying a cow, and towards getting married, I was having fun. Then the game ran out of things to work towards, and I was done with it. Harvest Moon is going into the not my thing tier. Dragon Quest VI has won the Patreon poll. I know it's been freaking forever since I had one of those, and I'm sorry. I'll try and make those more frequent. I'll try and make sure that my detours don't take as long as the last couple. Shout out to all the patrons. Shout out, as always, to William Robert Lee. Remember, never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Goodbye.